Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. The lightning ancestor hesitated, not very pleased with how Bai Xiaochun was looking at him. Listen, ya old monkey. Times are different now. That technique of yours really isn't that interesting. Think about it. The spiritual energy I've given you so far is like a drop in the ocean to me. If you want to be stingy, then you can go ahead and just keep wishing for my spiritual energy. Even if I get more, I won't give you any. The lightning ancestor immediately started to get nervous. Smiling wryly, he sighed and thought, little punk. I guess it doesn't matter whether or not you're doing this on purpose. Fine, you win. Although he had come to be a bit muddle-headed after all the years of confinement, if he couldn't see what Bai Xiaochun was doing by this point, he didn't deserve to have lived for so long. No matter how he thought the matter over, there didn't seem to be any other option for him. Besides, the spiritual energy he wanted so badly was under the complete control of Bai Xiaochun. And that couldn't possibly be the handiwork of the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect. Most importantly, although the 11 Cloud Lightning Forefather transformations was powerful, it didn't seem likely that the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect's demigod patriarch would hatch a plot this complicated to get it. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more he had to praise Bai Xiaochun for doing things this way. After all, not only had he come to hold the lightning ancestor's fate in his hands, but he had also manipulated his feelings perfectly. First he had done his work with the lightning, and had then hooked him and reeled him in with the lure of spiritual energy. From beginning to end, he had controlled things masterfully. After coming to all of these realizations, the lightning ancestor finally sighed and looked over at Bai Xiaochun. Whatever, he said. Alright kid, I don't need that much energy from the lightning. 100 bolts will do. Enough to create a spirit seed inside of me. As far as my divine ability goes, well, listen up. Eyes shining, he went on to explain the full mnemonic for the 11 Cloud Lightning Forefather transformations. He didn't hide any aspect of the technique. He explained it all in full. He acted like a true demigod, explaining everything in minute detail. After all, he was worried that Bai Xiaochun wouldn't give him the 100 lightning bolts he needed. It was a valid concern. The lightning ancestor knew that when dealing with a moneybags like Bai Xiaochun, he needed to be generous. Bai Xiaochun felt a bit embarrassed at how shameless he had been. Clearing his throat, he quickly fixed the 11 Cloud Lightning Forefather transformations mnemonic into his mind. The more he studied it, the more excited he got, and by the time he finished, his eyes were shining brightly with excitement. Even right now, I can tell that it's possible to combine it with my Sun Moon Vast Sky incantation. Delighted, he started tossing lightning bolts in the dozens over to the lightning ancestor. He only stopped when he reached 50. Choosing not to hide anything, he politely explained his intentions. I hope you can understand, senior. I need to be cautious. I'll give you the rest when I leave. The lightning ancestor completely understood. Snorting, he closed his eyes and went about absorbing the spiritual energy from the lightning bolts and beginning work on his spirit seed. At that point, Bai Xiaochun breathed a sigh of relief. It had been exhausting to both work on his cultivation and also figure out a way to get the divine ability from the lightning ancestor. Now that he had succeeded, he could focus fully on consuming lightning and furthering his cultivation. He had been incarcerated for about 2 months now, and during that time, had pushed his Sun Moon Vast Sky incantation all the way from the first level to the third. His cultivation base had also progressed, and his aura was stronger, very close to the mid-diva realm. Anyone outside who heard that would be completely shocked, and also overcome with envy. Right now, I have 2 main goals. First is to break out of the third level of the Sun Moon Vast Sky incantation, and thus step into the mid-diva realm. After that, I need to cultivate the 11 Cloud Lightning Forefather transformations, and fuse it with the Sun Moon Vast Sky incantation. After taking a moment to examine the crescent moon that existed inside of himself, he sent his divine sense out and waited for the next lightning storm. As the lightning bore down on him, he opened his mouth and inhaled deeply. He breathed in with all his might, causing the lightning to distort as it headed into his mouth. Rumble. In one breath, he sucked in several hundred lightning bolts. Deafening crashing sounds filled him, and intense energy of heaven and earth began to course through him. The crescent moon glittered, and his Sun Moon Vast Sky incantation pushed closer to breaking through. Just a bit more. His hands flashed in a double-handed incantation gesture, and then waved through the air in front of him. Hundreds more lightning bolts then shot toward him. Before long, an hour had passed. At that point, the lightning in the area began to thin. Although Bai Xiaochun had consumed quite a bit of lightning this time around, when compared to the boundless amounts that had gathered, the number was not very significant. Although he wasn't thrilled that the lightning was fading away, he knew that it would come back in about 4 hours. That was how things had gone consistently throughout the past 2 months. All of a sudden, he realized that if he changed his method, he might be able to speed up his cultivation. Having reached this point in his train of thought, he shot to his feet and performed another double-handed incantation gesture. His cultivation base immediately began to rotate at top speed, forming a huge vortex. As the vortex spun and rumbled, a significant gravitational force spread out. He also opened his heavenspan Dharma eye, and threw in the powers of gravity and repulsion that he had researched so many years ago. Before long, more than half of the dissipating lightning was actually moving toward him. The intense rumbling sounds that resulted attracted the attention of the lightning ancestor, who opened his eyes, looked around, and gasped. "What are you trying to do?" Bai Xiaochun had no attention to spare for the lightning ancestor. He kept his cultivation base rotating at top speed, drawing in hundreds of lightning bolts every time he opened his mouth. As a result, his cultivation base continued to climb. 4 hours passed, during which time he absorbed roughly 10% of the total amount. At that point, a new lightning storm began to build. After absorbing as much as he could from the new storm, the lightning began to dissipate, so he used the same method to force it to stay behind. Because of that, a sea of lightning built up around him, fully 5 kilometers across, and terrifying to behold. As for the lightning ancestor, he used a special technique to move his self further away from Bai Xiaochun. "This guy's crazy. That's not cultivation, that's suicide." Outside of the 5-kilometer lake of lightning, he looked back, heart trembling with fear. Bai Xiaochun was also feeling very apprehensive. However, if you ride a tiger, it's hard to get off. Despite having dispelled his cultivation base vortex, the sea of lightning had reached critical mass, and begun to swirl on its own, and also attract more lightning to it. "What did I do this time?" he thought nervously. "Well, no time to worry about it now. Gotta absorb this lightning." Howling, he absorbed the lightning like mad, which caused massive amounts of spiritual energy to surge through him. However, he could only breathe in a few hundred lightning bolts at a time, and had to close his mouth after doing so. Therefore, there were still plenty of lightning bolts left to strike him. He tried to dodge, but it was too little, too late. Massive rumbling sounds could be heard as over 10,000 lightning bolts slammed into him, provoking an agonized shriek. There was simply no way for him to consume all of the lightning, and now it felt like the lightning was actually eating him. The pain caused tears to spring out of his eyes. Even as he tried to dodge the lightning strikes, he realized that the massive influx of spiritual energy had pushed the sun-moon vast sky incantation toward the very limits of the 3rd level. His cultivation base rose rapidly, pushing him far beyond the early Diva realm, and very close to the mid-Diva realm. "Who cares about that? My poor little life is the most important thing of all." Trembling, he backed away from his original spot, but his movement tugged at the lake of lightning, causing an imbalance that sent tens of thousands of lightning bolts in his direction. A blood-curdling scream rang out as they slammed into him. Even as he screamed, his sun-moon vast sky incantation broke through, and his cultivation base climbed up into the mid-Diva realm. Off in the distance, the lightning ancestor stared in complete shock. "I guess times really have changed. Why are young people nowadays so reckless in their cultivation?" The lightning ancestor was completely flabbergasted to see the lightning slowly dissipating from around Bai Xiaochun, who stood there trembling, smoke rising up from him. He almost looked like he had been fried to perfection by the tens of thousands of lightning bolts. However, his cultivation base was no longer in the early Diva realm, he had stepped into the mid-Diva realm. His incomplete sun-moon vast sky incantation had reached its great circle. His left eye now had a bright moon in it that seemed ready to fly out of him at any moment, and appear in the sky as a second moon. The manifestation of this divine ability would cause any ordinary person to feel as if their heart and mind were being replaced by a moon. But all it did to Bai Xiaochun was leave him trembling physically and mentally. The truth was that he normally wouldn't ever use a method like this to achieve a cultivation base breakthrough. The mere thought of being slammed by so much lightning struck terror into his heart. "I'm done with cultivation," he said, scowling on the verge of tears. As of this point, even the slightest crackle of thunder caused him to flinch. Right now, he couldn't have been more afraid of another convergence of lightning. Even as he looked around anxiously, and tried to decide whether or not to start moving around, a new lightning storm began to build up. Perhaps because of the influence of the previous convergence of lightning, the gravitational force generated this time was massive. Within moments, more lightning had built up than the last time, covering everything with sparkling brightness. Bai Xiaochun screamed and scrambled backward, and yet that didn't stop the lightning from descending toward him. "I don't need it," he shrieked. The lightning ancestor was long gone, huffing and puffing as he propelled his self far off into the distance. Upon looking over his shoulder, he began to curse. "Damn it, no consideration for the elderly. Does he think it's easy for me to move this cell at my age?" Shortly before, something big was happening outside in the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect. The black cloud that housed the lightning order was beginning to move. It was almost like an earthquake, something strong enough that all of the lightning order cultivators felt it immediately. Did the ground just move? There's no way. We're on a big black cloud. How could that black cloud move? Do you guys get the sense that our lightning order's lightning reserves seem low? Ever since Bai Xiaochun had been incarcerated, the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect had been oddly at peace. The Cloud Order cultivators had felt at ease from the beginning, whereas the Lightning Order cultivators had initially been worried. However, as time passed, they gradually calmed down as well. After all, everyone had complete and utter faith in Lightning Penitentiary. Even the Devas felt no apprehension whatsoever. At long last, they were able to experience what life had been like before Bai Xiaochun arrived in their sect, and it left them sighing with heartfelt relief. However, even as people sighed in contentment, the Lightning Order's black cloud suddenly trembled, which immediately attracted attention. What was even more astonishing to the Lightning Order cultivators was how, moments later, the cloud shifted beneath their feet yet again. At the same time, muffled rumbling sounds could be heard, leading to cries of alarm within the Lightning Order. It did move. Something's wrong. The lightning. Guys, look at that lightning. Everyone looked down at the black cloud, and could see that fewer lightning bolts danced beneath its surface than before. Furthermore, every few moments, some of the remaining lightning bolts seemed to disappear into the depths of the cloud. Almost immediately, ill premonitions rose up in the hearts of many Lightning Order disciples. Up in the black coffin high above, the Devas' expressions flickered, and they suddenly started to get very nervous. "Don't tell me it's Bai Xiaochun again. Damn it, it couldn't possibly be him. He's been locked up." It was at this point that the Lightning Order's black cloud trembled yet again, even more violently than before. At the same time, loud rumbling sounds could be heard. It was at that exact same moment that, deep within the black cloud, in the middle of that massive convergence of lightning, Bai Xiaochun screamed and fled as quickly as possible. The restrictive spells that made up his 30-meter cell had long since been destroyed, giving him free access to attempt to escape. And yet, that did him no good. No longer were there tens of thousands of lightning bolts around him. Now, there were hundreds of thousands. No matter where or how he fled, the lightning followed, and if he slowed down for even a moment, he would be enveloped. And if he stopped moving, then even more lightning would build up. By this point, he was going crazy. How could this be happening? He moaned. It was a moment of deep crisis, and therefore, he finally just gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it. Fine, I'm going to go for broke. That lightning is made of spiritual energy, right? Who the hell would be scared of that?" Letting out a roar to psyche himself up, he drew upon the mnemonic the lightning ancestor had taught him, and began to cultivate the 11 cloud lightning forefather transformations. He suddenly lurched to a halt, which instantly allowed tens of thousands of lightning bolts to hone in on him, then smash into his body. Having his body slashed by lightning in this way was painful, but because of how tough he was easy to endure for the time being. At the same time, massive amounts of spiritual power began to flow through him, until he began to swell up like a balloon. Cloud Lightning Forefather, First Transformation. His vision swam as he was racked with pain, but he focused on the divine ability, using the spiritual energy to fuel the transformation. Instantly, rumbling sounds filled him as he grew to a height of 30 meters, and began to exude a wild and barbaric air. He had already succeeded at the first transformation. But things weren't over yet. As massive amounts of spiritual energy went wild within him, he began to work on the second transformation. Furthermore, he bolstered the effect with the Sun-Moon Vast Sky incantation, and the power of his left eye. He could only attempt a true combination by carefully analyzing everything one step at a time. Furthermore, there was always a chance of failure. Under normal circumstances, a failure would require him to stop and build up more spiritual energy before trying again. After all, combining these two powerful techniques demanded that he be in peak condition. But now, with boundless amounts of spiritual energy at his disposal, he didn't need to sit around waiting. As soon as he failed, he could try again. He tried again and again, over 10 times, until suddenly his left eye began to shine with dazzling moonlight. As it did, his 30-meter tall forefather form looked very different than Master Cloud Lightning's had. An indescribable aura emanated out from him, and the moon sigil within his eyes shone with such powerful light that it seemed capable of controlling all of the darkness of the night. It worked. However, now was not the time to revel in excitement. The spiritual energy inside of him drained rapidly, almost beyond his control. Howling, he began the second transformation of the Cloud Lightning Forefather technique. Rumbling sounds echoed out as he grew to a height of 60 meters. The second transformation was a success. And of course, he was not finished. Next was the third transformation, and then the fourth. As the innumerable lightning bolts surrounded him, rumbling sounds could be heard as he grew to a height of 90 meters, and then 120 meters. Furthermore, the wild and barbaric aura of the technique, combined with a fleshly body that had mastered the undying bones, made his transformed form even more powerful. By now, he had surpassed the limits of fleshly body power. If the twin master Cloud Lightnings were here to see what was happening, they would be shocked to the core. After all, the power Bai Xiaochun was capable of with this transformation far surpassed them. That was especially true because of the moon sigil in his left eye, which further added to his power. Under normal circumstances, Bai Xiaochun would be very excited. But right now, he could tell that his body was reaching a limit in its ability to absorb the lightning from the black cloud. It had nothing to do with the divine ability, only his own body. In some ways, it was exactly the same as when consuming medicinal pills. When that critical point was reached, the lightning would no longer be nourishing, but instead, harmful, and even destructive. As Bai Xiaochun grew stronger, the lightning bolts grew more numerous. By now, hundreds of thousands of them were showering down onto him. Tears of fear leaking out of his eyes, he decided that he had no choice but to hope that one more transformation would fix the situation. Cloud Lightning Forefather, 5th transformation. Rumbling sounds erupted as Bai Xiaochun's 120-meter form grew to a height of 150 meters. The 5th transformation of the Cloud Lightning Forefather was complete. He now radiated a terrifying aura, and the moon sigil in his left eye gave him additional power equal to 3 transformations. In total, he now wielded the power of the 8th transformation. Back when Master Cloud Lightning had actually reached the 8th transformation, his power surpassed the late Diva realm and came close to the Great Circle. As of this moment, Bai Xiaochun was now even more shockingly powerful than that. However, that brought him no joy, only fear, because after the 5th transformation was complete, his body reached the point that it could not accept any more of the lightning from the black cloud. The lightning writhed madly as it shot toward Bai Xiaochun, driving fear into his heart as he scrambled backward. He was now much faster than before, and yet, far more lightning had gathered. Now, instead of having to deal with hundreds of thousands of lightning bolts, there were over 1 million. It was a profoundly shocking scene. Off in the distance, the lightning ancestor was completely gobsmacked, and was shaking physically. By this point, he had completely forgotten about the 50 lightning bolts that Bai Xiaochun still owed him, and was doing everything he could to get his cell as far away as possible. You absolutely, positively must not get close to me, don't do it. My old body can't take this. Kids nowadays are all psychos. However, it was in that exact moment that Bai Xiaochun happened to look over, and caught sight of the lightning ancestor. When their eyes met, the lightning ancestor screamed, and drew upon all the strength he could muster to send his cell shooting in the opposite direction. As for Bai Xiaochun, he looked like the picture of grief and indignation as he did everything he could to get out of the range of the lightning. Sadly, more and more lightning was building up with every moment that passed. As Bai Xiaochun fled, his eyes wide with terror, he suddenly sensed that the lightning was starting to tremble with dangerous instability. It's gonna blow? His scalp tingled madly as he screamed and pushed forward with greater speed. Off in the distance, the lightning ancestor's eyes were about to pop out of his skull. However, at the same time, he was starting to get a bit excited. It's gonna blow? Great. The crazier the better. Maybe this will be my chance to get out of here. In the outside world, the black cloud was shaking non-stop. Virtually no lightning bolts were visible at all from the outside, and the cloud was starting to emanate an unsettling aura, as though something explosively dangerous were brewing deep inside of it. The twin master cloud lightnings, Feng Chen, and the other northern devas were all racing toward the cloud, and when they saw what was happening, their faces fell dramatically. They tried to send divine sense into the cloud to determine what exactly was happening, but because of the unusual properties of lightning penitentiary, they were unable to make out any specific details. What exactly is going on here? Damn it, this is definitely Bai Xiaochun's doing. Of course, the other 3 devas were quick to cast blame on Master Cloud Lightning and Feng Chen. It's your fault, Feng Chen. You should never have come up with the idea for the 3-point covenant, and you're to blame too, Master Cloud Lightning. This Bai Xiaochun is a walking disaster. Why the hell did you bring him here to begin with? The twin master Cloud Lightnings and Feng Chen had very unsightly expressions on their faces, but there was nothing they could say in response. As everyone looked on nervously, a stream of divine sense erupted from the crystal coffin which shook the hearts of even the devas. It quickly entered the black cloud, whereupon an enraged roar erupted out that shook heaven and earth. Bai Xiaochun. At the same time, the demigod patriarch materialized in midair. He looked extremely anxious, and didn't even take the time to say anything. He simply waved his hand out into the air. A powerful blast of wind erupted out, swept over the black cloud, grabbed all of the cultivators on it, and then teleported them off into the distance. In the exact moment that the demigod patriarch accomplished that, a shocking boom erupted out, the likes of which had never been heard in the north before. The source? The black cloud which made up the lightning order, which had just exploded. Boom! The noise was so loud that countless cultivators immediately began to cough up blood. Even the devas were shaken, and were shoved backward through the air. All of the buildings which rested on the black cloud landmass were reduced to ash as innumerable lightning bolts erupted out in all directions. It almost looked like a dragon made of lightning were climbing up into the sky. Then came the screaming shockwave, which rolled out in all directions, causing the sky to dim. As for the black cloud itself, much of it was reduced to nothing more than rubble. Cracks began to spread out in the lightning order's battle god statue. It was almost as if the entire Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect had come under attack. The Cloud Order's statue was missing a finger, and now the Lightning Order's statue was visibly damaged. The twin master Cloud Lightnings hovered there in complete shock. Feng Chen's jaw was hanging open, and his eyes were wide. The other devas reacted in similar fashion. As for the demigod patriarch, he was so angry that he was shaking, and his hair was standing on end. The Lightning Order cultivators who had been teleported away were stunned to the extreme. The Lightning Order now looked completely different from before, and the change had occurred so quickly that they had no chance to even react. In contrast, the Cloud Order cultivators were all feeling very blessed that Bai Xiaochun had not been locked up in their part of the sect. At the same time, they were even more terrified by his ability to cause catastrophes. This Bai Xiaochun must not be provoked. The Diva Patriarchs are out of their minds. Everything was fine until they had to go and confine him to the Cloud Order. First, he went and sold medicinal toxins to our Cloud Order cultivators, and then he destroyed half of the Cloud Order with his flower. Then they had to go and lock him up in Lightning Penitentiary, which is supposedly strong enough to keep even demigods in check. But this guy actually blew the entire place up. And look, almost half of the Lightning Order's black cloud has now been destroyed. Heavens, is this guy even human? How did the cultivators in the Starry Sky Dao Polarity sect manage to stay alive all this time? Everybody says that his pill concocting is the stuff that can shake heaven and earth. But he never even concocted medicine here in the north. And look how it ended up. I bet if he had concocted medicine, he would have destroyed all of the northern Heavenspan River. Before long, a cacophony of conversation filled the air. The entire Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect was abuzz. And that was when people began to take notice of a bedraggled figure climbing up from within the rubble of the black cloud. Bai Xiaochun's face was pale, and he was dripping with sweat. After all, he had very nearly been fried to a crisp just now. I'm definitely never going to absorb any more lightning ever again. It's way too dangerous. Even as he crawled out into the open, he heard a howl of rage echoing from above. Bai Xiaochun. It was the demigod patriarch, whose rage surpassed heavenly might, and startled Bai Xiaochun so much that he jumped up into the air. The demigod patriarch took a step forward toward Bai Xiaochun, and yet, before he could do anything else, suddenly looked off in a different direction. How dare you try to escape, lightning ancestor? The demigod patriarch shoved his hand out, causing the air off in the distance to shatter, revealing the emaciated lightning ancestor who, without pausing for even a moment, spun in place and shot off into the distance like a bolt of lightning. The demigod patriarch had no time to worry about Bai Xiaochun. Face turning very grim, he sped off in pursuit of the lightning ancestor. Catching him was far more important than punishing Bai Xiaochun. The events playing out had Bai Xiaochun sweating nervously. I'm not sticking around the north any longer than I have to. I need to get out of here. At this point, he completely ignored the dharmic decree of the Celestial, and fled from the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect. However, as he did, Feng Chen let out a cry of rage and shot after him. Feng Chen actually had taken a liking to Du Lingfei, and therefore, hated Bai Xiaochun even more than could be imagined. He had been very proud of this three-point covenant, and had imagined that it would be a big torment to Bai Xiaochun. Never could he have imagined that instead, Bai Xiaochun would turn the tables and throw the entire sect into chaos. And that only served to fuel Feng Chen's hatred. Immediately drawing upon a trump card, he transformed into a crimson bolt of lightning that brimmed with destructive power as it shot toward Bai Xiaochun. However, Bai Xiaochun was just as angry, and spun in place to face him. "I've had enough of you, Bai Xiaochun." Feng Chen howled. His crimson lightning bolt form moved with incredible quickness, bringing him to appear in front of Bai Xiaochun in the blink of an eye. He radiated the cultivation-based fluctuations of the mid-diva realm as he sent a devastating attack directly toward Bai Xiaochun's forehead. "Yeah, well, I've had enough of you, Feng Chen." And that was absolutely the truth. The instant he arrived in the north, he was hit with the 3-point covenant, which was then upgraded to a 4, and then a 5-point covenant. Normally, Bai Xiaochun was not the type of person who liked fighting and killing, but he had been pushed so far that the personality he had developed in the wildlands finally showed through. His eyes flashed with anger as Feng Chen closed in, to the point where the moon sigil in his left eye began to shine brightly. Then he waved his hand, causing the previously blue sky to suddenly turn as dark as night. The darkness covered up the sun, but at the same time revealed a bright moon, whose light illuminated everything down below. All of the northerners who were touched by that light suddenly felt as if their hearts, minds, and even their divine souls were being absorbed. Feng Chen gasped as a sensation of imminent crisis swept through him. He even backed up a bit, and yet, that was when Bai Xiaochun grimly spoke 2 words. "Fallen moon." The sky turned even darker than before, and intense rumbling sounds filled the air. At the same time, a moon sigil appeared on Feng Chen's red lightning bolt, which began to absorb the surrounding moonlight, causing it to shine brighter and brighter. Rumble. Suddenly, the lightning bolt exploded, revealing Feng Chen's human form. However, the moon sigil was still visible on him, as though it had been branded on him, all the way down to his bones. As the moon sigil began to grow larger, Feng Chen screamed in terror at the realization that he was being harmed, not just physically, but in his cultivation base. The function of the moon sigil was to assimilate the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that existed inside of the human body. And when it completed its work, that person would be killed in body and soul. What divine ability is this? Feng Chen felt like entire mountain peaks were battering him. There was simply nothing he could do to fight back against Bai Xiaochun's fallen moon technique. Bai Xiaochun didn't even need to touch him. As long as the moonlight hit Feng Chen, his injuries would mount, something he had only ever witnessed demigods accomplish. And yet here Bai Xiaochun was doing that very thing. It left Feng Chen profoundly shaken, blood spraying out of his mouth as his eyes shone with terror and disbelief. Although all of this takes a bit of time to describe, from the moment Feng Chen transformed into a crimson lightning bolt, to the instant that lightning bolt shattered and he was severely injured, only a brief span of time elapsed. None of the onlookers had a chance to react before Feng Chen's blood-curdling screams filled the air. Not even Bai Xiaochun could have guessed that his sun-moon vast sky incantation would be so shockingly powerful. However, that didn't stop him from performing an incantation gesture with his right hand, and then waving his finger out in front of him. Instantly, the bright moon in the darkness above glittered dazzlingly, and the moonlight seemed to focus and shine directly onto Feng Chen. That in turn caused the moon sigil burned into Feng Chen to spread out to cover his entire body. His screams intensified. It was a moment of deadly crisis in which Feng Chen was shaking violently, unable to even wrap his mind around what was happening. Without any warning, he was placed in a moment of life or death, something that seemed impossible, considering that he was in the mid-diva realm. He had always been a chosen in the north, a person who had won countless battles, and yet, he was totally powerless against Bai Xiaochun's divine ability. "I refuse to accept this," he howled, eyes shining with madness. However, he was beginning to fade from existence as shafts of moonlight stabbed out of him. He almost seemed to be turning into moonlight itself. Of course, Feng Chen wasn't the type to just sit around and wait to die. Although his fingers were almost completely gone, he still managed to raise his hand and touch the top of his head. A boom rang out as his body exploded, sending the fluctuations of a diva-level self-detonation rolling out in all directions. Borrowing the force of the explosion, his nascent divinity shot into the open and prepared to flee. However, that was when, to his utter astonishment, he discovered that his nascent divinity also had a moon sigil on it. "Impossible!" Feng Chen cried. "This is impossible." He couldn't have been more astonished. By now, the sensation of crisis had intensified to the point where he was now certain he was about to die. "It's a true Taoist magic." The twin master cloud lightnings shouted urgently. "Get to the crystal coffin, Feng Chen. Hide there. Bai Xiaochun, how dare you kill people here in the north?" Things are not finished between us and you. Flying forward at top speed, they began to combine their two forms, causing the fluctuations of the late Deva realm to roll out in all directions. He wasn't the only one, the other three Devas could also tell that it was a critical moment. Unleashing their cultivation bases, they turned into four beams of light that all shot toward Bai Xiaochun. Trembling, Feng Chen heeded the advice of Master Cloud Lightning, ignoring the burning state of his nascent divinity to shoot at top speed toward the crystal coffin. His hope was to take advantage of the interference provided by the other Devas to get into the demigod's immortals cave, and cut himself off from the light of the bright moon. His plan worked, but by the time he evaded the moonlight, causing the moon sigil to vanish, his nascent divinity had been eaten away by nearly half. Although he would eventually recover, he had experienced an indefinite drop in cultivation base. There he sat in the crystal coffin, shivering in fear. He had just barely evaded death, and even though he didn't want to admit it, he now felt utter terror at the mere thought of Bai Xiaochun. His cultivation base is definitely not in the early Deva realm. He's in the mid-Deva realm. But, even in that level, how could he be so incredibly strong? Meanwhile, the other four northern Devas were trembling in shock, and the ordinary cultivators who were watching the events play out much more so. All of them were both shocked and terrified by what Bai Xiaochun had done. Heavens! This Bai Xiaochun, he's so strong. I made fun of him a while back. I laughed at him openly. Hold on a second. If he was this strong before, why would he let himself get pushed around? What if he actually experienced a breakthrough after arriving in the north? Meanwhile, Bai Xiaochun was dodging attacks from Master Cloud Lightning and the other Devas, his expression grim, and his eyes bloodshot. Alright you northerners, I'm done. Lord Bai has had enough of you people. Bring it on, let's fight. Since he had already attacked one of them, he decided to throw caution to the wind. Without any hesitation, he unleashed the full power of his cultivation base, causing mid-Deva realm fluctuations to erupt in all directions. By now, the darkness was fading from the sky as it returned to normal, making it very easy to see a huge face up above, which radiated the might of heaven and earth. Mid-Deva realm. Damn it, he really did have a breakthrough. After sensing Bai Xiaochun's cultivation base fluctuations, Master Cloud Lightning felt like he was going crazy. He felt completely and utterly powerless in the face of Bai Xiaochun's power. Back in the trial by fire, he had tried to kill him, only to be flummoxed first by his medicinal pill, and then by him addressing Du Lingfei as wifey. He had started out with the complete advantage, but had eventually reached the point of being completely trampled on by Bai Xiaochun. His original assumption had been that, once in the north, in his home sect, he would definitely be able to heap torment onto Bai Xiaochun. Never could he have guessed that, despite his extreme hatred of Bai Xiaochun would first sell medicinal pills, then plant flowers, and then even force the demigod patriarch to step in and imprison him. But then, is this Bai Xiaochun even human? Not only did he destroy Lightning Penitentiary, he achieved a cultivation base breakthrough? How could he possibly have done something as difficult as breaking through to the mid-Deva realm? He really did break through. The other three Devas were reacting with madness similar to Master Cloud Lightning. However, despite their rage, they could do nothing but watch helplessly as Bai Xiaochun avoided everything they sent at him. He's a hedgehog. No matter how you try to grab him, you end up getting poked. Fine, then forget his weird techniques. Let's just overpower him. Eyes flashing with loathing, Master Cloud Lightning shot toward Bai Xiaochun. Apparently, the other Devas understood what he was thinking, as they too advanced, their murderous auras raging. 4 Devas were joining hands to attack Bai Xiaochun with deadly force. The cultivators from the Cloud Order and the Lightning Order were all watching with rapt attention. Based on what everyone could tell, it didn't matter if Bai Xiaochun were even stronger than he had already proven to be, he would still die for his brazenness. This Bai Xiaochun is strong, but he's forgotten that he isn't in the east anymore. This is the north. HMPH. How dare he throw his weight around here in the north? We're definitely going to show him a thing or two. I refuse to believe that Master Cloud Lightning and the other Devas all working together can't kill that one measly Bai Xiaochun. Everyone was now starting to calm down, and were showing nothing but open disdain toward Bai Xiaochun. Meanwhile, Master Cloud Lightning and the other Devas were closing in rapidly. Cold light flickered in Bai Xiaochun's eyes. He had been restraining himself ever since he arrived in the north, but now that he had 4 Devas all showing open killing intent, his anger erupted in full. Instead of backing up, he advanced, waving his hand to summon the Water Swamp Kingdom. Water vapor roiled in all directions as a huge clawed hand shot out. Everything shook violently, catching all of the Devas completely by surprise. Master Cloud Lightning wasn't affected very deeply, but the three other devas gasped, and one of them even coughed up blood. Bai Xiaochun, Master Cloud Lightning, the top diva in the north, roared in rage at this. Transforming into a beam of bright light, he shot directly toward Bai Xiaochun, simultaneously shouting, "Cloud Lightning Forefather, 7th transformation." An ear-splitting rumbling sound spread out as Master Cloud Lightning rapidly grew to a height of 210 meters. He truly looked like the forefather of all humanity, with a cultivation base and battle prowess that skyrocketed seemingly without limit. In an instant, he was past the late diva realm, and was like a tempest bearing down on Bai Xiaochun. However, that was when Bai Xiaochun's eyes flashed, and he shouted, "Super Suppression Forefather, 5th transformation." Boom! Bai Xiaochun also grew rapidly in size, until he was 150 meters tall, with a wild and barbaric aura, and a burly, savage appearance. Within his left eye was a moon sigil that shone with dazzling light, which made his 5th transformation as powerful as the 8th. This is impossible. Master Cloud Lightning's eyes bulged on the verge of popping out of his skull. The reason he hadn't resorted to his 8th transformation was that it was too draining. Furthermore, how could he possibly have ever guessed that Bai Xiaochun would actually use the exact same divine ability as him? They slammed into each other, and a massive boom echoed out in all directions. The air vibrated as Master Cloud Lightning tumbled backward, blood spraying out of his mouth. Although he was shaken physically, he was even more shaken mentally, and was panting in disbelief. The Cloud Lightning Forefather technique was a secret magic that belonged to the North. And yet, in completely unexpected fashion, Bai Xiaochun had used it right in front of him, a fact that instantly shoved him further toward madness. Even worse was the fact that he had only used the 5th transformation, and yet had completely overpowered his own 7th transformation. It was utterly maddening. "Bai Xiaochun," he roared, "how dare you steal a secret legacy technique of the North?" Without any hesitation, he utilized his 8th transformation, reaching a height of 240 meters, whereupon he charged back into the fray. "That's bullshit and you know it." Bai Xiaochun shot back. "You're using the Cloud Lightning Forefather technique, and I'm using the Super Suppression Forefather technique. The names are totally different. What are you, blind? Or deaf? Or both?" Snorting coldly, he launched forward, slamming into Master Cloud Lightning. As they separated from the exchange, Bai Xiaochun's chi and blood was boiling. Eyes shining with the desire to do battle, he lurched backward, performed a double-handed incantation gesture, and then shouted out at the top of his lungs, "Living Mountain Incantation, Rumble." Countless rocks and boulders began to fly through the air, covering Bai Xiaochun's 150-meter frame and causing him to grow larger and taller. Within moments, he was a 300-meter tall stone golem. The combination of the Forefather transformation with the Living Mountain incantation produced shocking results, and shook everything in the area due to the sheer stunning levels of energy involved. All of the northern cultivators gasped, and began to cry out in alarm. Furthermore, the energy of the Living Mountain incantation caused a massive wind to spring up, a wind so powerful it stung the faces of all cultivators it touched. Master Cloud Lightning couldn't help but gasp in shock. He suddenly had the intense premonition that Bai Xiaochun was too much for him to handle. Damn it, how could he have become so strong? Only someone in the great circle of the Diva realm could possibly be a match for him. And he hasn't even used that trump card fist strike yet. At that point, Master Cloud Lightning's pupils constricted, and he began to back up as quickly as possible. However, even as he did, Bai Xiaochun began to stride forward. As he went after Master Cloud Lightning, Bai Xiaochun let out a low-pitched growl that contained heavenly might, forcing the other devas to brace themselves and fight back against it. One of them transformed into a black lightning bolt, another split up into 9 cloud projections, and the third summoned an enormous furnace. Then all 3 of them shot forward to block Bai Xiaochun's path. Bai Xiaochun didn't even look at them. "Get the hell out of my way." Roaring, he waved his hand, sending a blast of wind out to meet them. The black lightning bolt shattered, the 9 cloud projections were ripped to pieces, and the enormous furnace broke into countless fragments. The 3 devas all coughed up blood, expressions of disbelief overtaking their faces as Bai Xiaochun flew right past them. Too strong. Bai Xiaochun hadn't slowed down at all. As he closed in on Master Cloud Lightning, he clenched his hand into a fist, causing a black vortex to spring up around it. "You ambushed me in the trial by fire, Master Cloud Lightning. And afterwards, you were completely unreasonable. And now you want to rely on your late Diva realm cultivation base to kill me? You've been pestering me constantly since I got to the north. Well now, on this day, we're going to settle all our debts and grudges. Master Cloud Lightning's mind was reeling, especially considering that he could plainly see Bai Xiaochun's fist, and the black vortex spinning around it. Face flickering wildly, he flew backward and screamed, "What are you people standing around for? Activate the sect's grand defensive spell formation." The other 3 devas all began to shout orders. Activate formation, power up the grand spell formation. As for the surrounding northern cultivators who had been standing around in stunned shock, they finally recovered from their reveries. Faces pale, they immediately began to go about activating their sect's grand spell formation. It wasn't a process that took a lot of time. Even as Bai Xiaochun closed in on Master Cloud Lightning, a massive force sprang out from the Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect, creating a misty shield that emanated a formidable force of expulsion. Not only was Bai Xiaochun stopped in his tracks, but he was even pushed backward out of the sect. Bai Xiaochun frowned as he was shoved in the opposite direction, completely beyond his control. When Master Cloud Lightning and the other devas saw that, they finally breathed sighs of relief. The fight had spun out of control too quickly, leaving them more shaken with every second that passed. However, even as they breathed sighs of relief, Bai Xiaochun's eyes glittered. Spell formations don't work against me. Drawing upon the undying hex, he bypassed the force of expulsion and pierced back through the spell formation shield. Shockingly, there was nothing that could stand in his way. Rumbling sounds could be heard as he appeared in front of Master Cloud Lightning, the black vortex around his fist rapidly devouring the spiritual energy in the area. An enormous, shadowy emperor appeared behind him, which then merged into his fist. The undying emperor's fist. When that fist struck, anything in creation could be destroyed. Master Cloud Lightning's pupils constricted, and his mind spun crazily. There was no time to ponder what to do, and no way he could dodge out of the way. He could only howl at the top of his lungs and draw dangerously upon his energy to unleash his 9th transformation. In the blink of an eye, he was 270 meters tall and bracing himself for Bai Xiaochun's blow. A boom rang out that surpassed anything from before. All sound in the area was crushed, to the point where it almost seemed silent. Then the shockwave erupted, shaking the entire Nine Heavens Cloud Lightning sect to its foundations. At the same time, Master Cloud Lightning's eyes went wide, and he screamed uncontrollably. No! Blood erupted from his mouth like a waterfall as he was flung backward head over heels. He could no longer maintain his transformed form, and he shrank back down and then split apart into 2 people, both of whom continued to tumble backward, blood spraying out of their mouths. The older brother among the 2 had it better off than the younger one. The younger brother simply couldn't withstand the force, and was ripped to shreds. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.